This is a great opportunity to take a step back and perhaps for me to share my own personal story because people see the podcast as what it is today, what my brand is. I remember when I started this journey, and it's only been about 3 years, I had absolutely zero personal brand, maybe a little bit more than 0%. But I was the victim of living in a corporate environment where I had been told by various companies that I worked for that the emphasis is on the company. It's not about our personal brand. And I think when I worked for Lowe's, it was probably at its peak because at Lowe's, you weren't even allowed to speak about Lowe's. So I went into a 6+ year cocoon during the most important time frame from when I was 32, 33 to 39. So a very important period of my career. And we weren't allowed to do any personal branding. We weren't allowed to do any speeches on behalf of Lowe's, any interviews, anything else, just became dormant. And then when I was at Dell, we were able to speak, but it was still a focus on selling what Dell had. And then from there, it went into the private equity world, same story. So I looked at a couple of peers that were in different companies, different industries along the same trajectory I did, and they were able to establish a brand. And I think it did many of the things that you're talking about. For one, if they're meeting on a sales call with a prospective client, I think anyone's going to do their research on who they're talking to, and it gives them an opportunity, for better or for worse, to see what this person is all about. But another key thing is if you ever need to change careers or if you're looking, whether it's to get promoted in your own company or to seek a new position, having a personal brand is absolutely critical, I think, especially now more than ever for many of the reasons you described, because it allows people to see the real you and what your message is all about outside of the work environment. I'm wondering how many people fell into the same trap that I did, and if that trap is changing as companies are recognizing the importance of this branding.
I love that you shared that. My experience, John, is that most leaders fall into that trap for one of two reasons. Either it's imposed upon them by the company that they're working with, be it at Lowe's or whatever company that might be, or they fall into that trap because they feel like they missed the boat on it. In other words, I talk to so many leaders that say, all right, Rusty, listen, if I'd have started this 8 years ago, I'd be crushing it right now, or 10 years ago, but I feel like I missed the boat. There's so many people now with podcasts or books or big LinkedIn followings. And to your point, you started just a few years ago, right? Out of nowhere with it. And we're sitting here today, you're over 100,000 on YouTube in terms of subscribers. We've got more than 10 million downloads. In other words, a lot of people have said, okay, if you're starting this around 2019, 2020, you missed the boat, or that's the self-talk that I see from a lot of leaders. And the reality is just the opposite. Where we are today, John, the audience you want to reach increasingly wants to push traditional media out of the way and learn directly from individual leaders, people that they see as more authentic, more interesting, more trustworthy than what they can get elsewhere. And what I love about your brand, John, land on your website, I would guess one of the highest traffic pages on your website is that My Story link. And when I click on that My Story link and I learn about the burglary that you walked in on, the shift that created in your life, this is not just, hey, look how smart John is, brand. You have done completely the opposite, which is what I wholeheartedly recommend to your audience. And that is, I want them to be the messenger, not the message. In other words, this is not about building some kind of an ego-driven brand. This is about if you've got a message to get out, if you're going to make an impact at scale, it's going to go further, quicker, cheaper, more effectively if you, as the leader, are willing to be the messenger, if you're willing to be vulnerable, if you're willing to be authentic. And I think you've done a really great job with that. And I'd love to unpack at some point in this conversation some of the nuances of what I feel like you've done well with your brand. But I think at a high level, my encouragement to your listeners is similar to the decision John made. He didn't lean into that self-talk around, hey, did I miss the boat, or can I really do this anymore? The reality is that audience continues to swell for individual mission-driven leaders. And if you can bring that personality, if you can bring value to the table, you're going to grow quickly too.